Hi, it's Danny from Danny Sports Bar here at Pattaya, looking ahead at the week in the world of sports. And we're going to talk this week, as we do a lot of weeks, about rivalries. And we're going to start off with European football, starting the Premier League, 11:30 on Saturday night. 12:30 on Saturday night. Now the clocks have changed, so we got to go an hour later. Spurs and Chelsea. It's an interesting rivalry. They're two London teams. Spurs' traditional regional rival in North London is Arsenal. But for Chelsea, there's no bigger game locally than when they play Tottenham. They've also done very well in recent years against Tottenham. Now this year, they're both off to so-so starts. One of my friends said the other day, boy, Chelsea looked good. And then you looked at the table, and they're actually 3 points behind Spurs in the table. Early in the season, still a long way to go, but it's a game that not only has a lot of passion on both sides, but may determine some of where we go in the Champions League spots later in the year in the Premier League. Same time, 12:30 on Saturday night, in Germany in the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich are playing Bayer Leverkusen. Again, this is in the table not as big a deal. Bayern Munich off to, as often, a very big start in the league. Leverkusen right now are in 5th spot. But if you look back at the German champions since 2012, Bayern Munich has won every year except for one. That was a couple of years ago. Who won it? Bayer Leverkusen. So we have the two teams, the only two teams that have won a German championship in the last decade, and they're playing Saturday night in Germany. Sunday night in Scotland, we have Rangers and Celtic. Obviously, anybody who knows anything about football has probably heard about Glasgow Rangers, Glasgow Celtic, one of the most heated, passionate, sectarian rivalries in world football, in world sport. This year, neither team is off to a spectacular start. Rangers did so poorly, they fired their manager. Celtic are surprisingly 8 points behind Hearts in the league. But they're playing this week on Sunday night in the Scottish League Cup in the semi-finals. What's interesting about that, these two teams have dominated, not just dominated Scottish football, but they've really dominated the Scottish League Cup. It's been played 79 times. Between the two of them, Rangers and Celtic have won it 50 of those 79 times, almost evenly divided between the two of them. Last year they played in the final. It was a wild game. This year they're playing in the semifinal. That's on Sunday night. Now we'll go on to American football. And in American football, we have a game on Saturday night at 11 p.m. that often is thought of as a traditional rivalry in the Big Ten. Ohio State are playing Penn State. Now what's funny about it this year, in recent years Ohio State have kind of dominated the rivalry, and this year even more so. Penn State, like we were talking about with Rangers, they did so poorly, they fired their coach. They're winless so far, 0-4 in the Big Ten. Ohio State are 4-0. They and Indiana, the two undefeated teams in the Big Ten. Now, unfortunately, they don't play in the regular season this year. When people are looking at who either one of those teams could lose to later this year, people, even though they're 0-4, people look at Penn State because before the season began, some people were even thinking of Penn State as the favorite in the Big Ten. Obviously, it hasn't worked out that way so far. We'll move ahead 24 hours later, Sunday night, 1 a.m. Remember, the NFL games next week start 1 a.m. on Sunday instead of midnight as the clocks change in the United States. We have the Vikings and the Lions. This rivalry, neither team is on top right now in the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers are, but it's such a tight division. They've been playing in the same division since 1970. It used to be called the Black and Blue Division, the NFC Central for a while, now the NFC North. But when they get together, it's always an interesting game, and those two really interesting teams in the NFL this year. There's another game that same time, the Colts against the Steelers in the AFC North, also a kind of interesting game and a rivalry that's been played for a while. Now we're going to go on to England against Australia. And no matter what sport they play in, England and Australia, it's a big game. Later on in November, we'll have the start of the Ashes series in cricket, played in Australia this year, 5 tests, which for anyone from either of those two countries that has the slightest interest in cricket, that is kind of the whole story. That's what they live for, the Ashes. We'll be talking about that soon. It's starting up soon. What we have this week is at least 2 meetings of England and Australia on the sports fields, potentially 3. One of them, rugby league, what they call the Rugby League Ashes. Now the first game, it's the second game of a 3-game series. They're playing in Liverpool at Everton's new stadium this week. The first game, England kind of dominated, 26-6. Australia kind of dominated, 26-6. I think a lot of people think the entire series could go that way, but there's interest, especially on the Australian side, in how this goes. They don't play every year. There's a lot of tradition in this rivalry, and people will still come out to watch it. That same night, hour or so later, at Twickenham, England will play Australia in rugby union. That series has potentially more tradition, or even more tradition. Obviously, rugby league came out of rugby union. Rugby union's been going for longer. The Wallabies Australia team, they played a little better this past year. The last few years haven't been so good for them. They're hosting the next World Cup next year. They're going to want to show that they could be a factor on the stage in World Rugby. This weekend is the start of what they call it, I think they call the International Series now. It used to be called the Autumn Internationals in the Northern Hemisphere. That game is the start of that for England. There's always a lot of attention paid to it, how it's going to be going into the Six Nations later in this winter, and then also, of course, to next year into the World Cup, England and Australia and that. Now the other one, we don't know whether they're going to meet yet. The Women's Cricket World Cup has been going on in India and Sri Lanka. England and Australia are both into the semifinals. They won't play each other. Australia will play India. England will play South Africa. But should they both win, those games are Wednesday and Thursday, should they both win, then on Sunday in the Women's World Cup final, we could get England and Australia again. Not at all out of the question. And you know what the rivalry is like in men's cricket. Women's cricket doesn't have nearly the attention men's cricket does, but if there's one matchup that guaranteed a lot of people are going to watch, it would be England against Australia, especially if it ends up being in a World Cup final. There's other action this week too, full slate of Premier League. In the midweek we have cup games, the Carabao Cup in England, some interesting matchups. They're late night, Liverpool playing Crystal Palace, Spurs playing Newcastle, Arsenal playing Brighton among the matchups. We have the DFB Pokal in Germany. There's Serie A games midweek too. We also, of course, have the World Series going on in America. Not usually at a great time for us, although the amazing Game 3 went so long that it was still on when our bar opened this afternoon at 12. And of course, the Dodgers ended up winning in 18 innings on Freddie Freeman's walk-off home run to go up 2-1 in the series. We will be showing replays of World Series games all week until that's over. Anyway, plenty going on. Come see us here at Danny's.